Hi, this is Bruce Rawles. I'm speaking again with Susan Dugan about A Course in Miracles, as we pretty much always do. And today we thought we'd talk about, per Susan's excellent suggestion, section 20 in the Manual for Teachers, which is, what is the peace of God? And it's something that we can all use regardless of world conditions or whatever in terms of circumstances, can't we? So, welcome,
Yeah,
Susan.
thank you. Yeah, what I mean, it's a piece not of this world would be nice, wouldn't it? Because isn't any peace here. Hasn't ever been clearer, I don't think. You'd have to be really, I don't know, spinning on something really good to think that that there was, I think. So yeah, but it's a challenge. It's this is in the Manual for Teachers, and the manual really has as its two themes the idea of trying to find shared purpose, which is really the byproduct of forgiveness. You know, that it really sees that we have shared interests, and not on the level of form, not at the level of the body or the world, but at the level of the mind. We all are in need of healing the belief that we're separate from God, which we're not even aware we have, but that belief that we're guilty, that someone must pay for what we think we did, which is what the Course's foundational mythology explains to us, is what's going on psychologically and why we behave the way we behave, which is always projecting that thought out into the world and trying to operating from this place of inner guilt that we're not sure where it's coming from. So we're always trying to see it outside ourselves and someone else, and so that we feel better. And so that the manual really emphasizes that idea that we're all in need of healing that belief. And the way that we heal that belief is to begin to develop a relationship with another part of our mind that never took that tiny mad idea of separation. The Course calls it seriously. Remember to laugh at that idea, which is really a laughable idea. It went nowhere, but in our deep dream and psychosis, it seemed to have real effects, and we're so far away from the original thought that we've completely forgotten it, and that we made all this up. But we see the symptoms of it everywhere. We see guilt everywhere. We see punishment everywhere. We see threat everywhere. And so the two themes in that, those are the two themes in the manual. But this particular section of it is really, like elsewhere in the manual, Jesus is speaking to us very directly as students of his, as Course students, who are learning to be what he calls teachers of God, which is really, pupils of Jesus, pupils of this new kind of practicing this new kind of forgiveness, which is really forgiving ourselves for what we really, what we secretly think we did to God, and we think we're doing to each other, and really beginning to open to the idea that no one's really guilty, and that's what begins to lead us back up the ladder that separation seemed to lead us down. But it's not, he's in this, I had to laugh at this section because we did it last night in my Tuesday night class, and he's very, he's really teaching us very directly, like, what is the peace of God? Because you don't know. I mean, the title of this, "What is the peace of God?" is in itself, really kind of directly telling us and confronting us with the fact that we have no idea what the peace of God is. And so we're in school, we're learning, we're giving our lives a new purpose of forgiveness, and as a classroom of forgiveness in which we're learning that we're wrong about all of our reactions, about the cause of all of our reactions, that the cause is always just that guilt in the mind that we're choosing to make real in the moment again and again and again, as the only strategy that we think we have to defend ourselves from the punishment that we believe we deserve for what we didn't really do. So we need a lot of help. He tells us what it is, he tells us how we can find it, and then he tells us how we can try to keep it, and how we know we've lost it is how we learn to keep it, because we have to choose again. So anyway, that's sort of an introduction to this section. But I think that for myself, I know that I don't, a part of me, a really big part of me still doesn't want the peace of God, would like to be peaceful, but really would like some, some help with dealing with what we all have to deal with here in the body, in the world. And, increasingly right now, where we're just kind of going on and on and on with this, threat to our physical reality, threat to for many of us, our financial realities, threats to our, sort of our hopes and dreams in this world, are the way of life that we thought we had, and all the disruption that this virus has caused for people, and the very real, seemingly real threat to the body, that results in death and terrible suffering. So, so that is, not to mention that, the polarization that's going on over what to do about it, and the polarization that's going on over just something as simple as wearing a mask, and how that can bring people into like fits of rage on either side. So, myself included at times. I mean, I must say, it's very easy. We're not at the top of the ladder. I'm not, awakened yet. So we're all dealing with this, and the course offers us a practice and again, this inner teacher, a different goal, a different purpose that can help us to sort of ground ourselves again and again back into something that really does lead us toward peace and healing, real peace and healing that's not of this world, that's not dependent on the trials and tribulations of being a human, that seem to have accelerated suddenly without really, we don't even really understand what happened, and yet we're dealing with it, and we don't know when it's going to be over, or how it's going to be over, or if it's going to be over, right?
Yeah, just for
Yeah,
reference, we're recording this conversation on the 14th of August,
yeah,
2020,
that's a good idea. Yeah,
just about 5 months after the onset of a relatively significant global recognition of the pandemic for COVID-19.
right.
And
Yeah,
so this has been a 5 month eternity. I mean,
it,
in
it
a
feels
lot of
like
ways
that.
for the planet in many respects. I couldn't help but well, I appreciate everything you shared just now. A couple of things stood out for me in the initial remarks was, you used the word mythology, and I was thinking how, the world that we live in is a very sophisticated mythological construct. But this wonderful curriculum called A Course in Miracles that we found so helpful really does seem to remind us that it's a mythology. The world that we made up is a mental construct. It's
Right,
yeah, it's and that in itself is can be helpful if we remember that it's covering up the light that's beyond it. I also was something you said about darkness kind of reminded me. I think something about that. You said something that kind of reminded me of a series that my wife and I just finished binge watching, actually quite good, called The Kindness Diaries. I don't know if you've seen that or not. It's been on Netflix, and I think it was on Amazon Prime, the first season originally, but I think they're both on Netflix now. Anyway, it's a fellow who travels around the world. The first season was in a little yellow sidecar, the second season in a little yellow Volkswagen Bug, different trajectories around the planet. But in both cases, his intent is to, you know, basically test the idea that one could rely on the kindness of strangers for food, lodging, hospitality, and so forth. And then he's secretly a philanthropist and gives back to those that that he deems deserving of paying it forward, paying it back, kind of thing, in abundance. And it's a fun premise, and it's a nice travelogue for vicarious getting out of out of Dodge and the current situation. But the message behind it is one of promoting kindness. He also does an interesting job on a couple of the episodes, at least, contrasting some of the places he visits where, extreme unkindness historically has taken place. And this last couple of episodes,
Has he come? Does he spend a lot of time in the United States these days?
uh, I imagine he is, but yeah, these were filmed before 2020, I believe. But anyway, the one of the things that he covered in a previous episode where he's going from Alaska to the tip of South America was, I believe it was in Bolivia, there was these like catacombs and caves where slaves basically were held in complete darkness in these catacombs 400 years ago. And I was thinking that was the only thing that they knew was being, in this crowded catacomb in utter darkness because they didn't even have candles. And I'm thinking, wow, what a great metaphor. I mean, it's a horrible, just to imagine that is just, not only terrifying, but just, just wrenching. But to think that that's how Holy Spirit actually, I was kind of, struck with the idea that that's probably how Holy Spirit thinks of us as being self-enslaved in the
Right.
dark,
Prison,
needlessly.
right? The Course uses the word imprisoned a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So and to have compassion on ourselves, so long held captive by our own thoughts, by our own mythology.
Right. And
Um,
I mean, I think that for anyone who's practiced this course for a while and in a dedicated way, I'm very aware that when I'm choosing my ego, often it feels like that sometimes the pain of that feels like solitary confinement. I mean,
sure,
it really does
sure.
feel like I can't get out of it. I don't know how, I don't know why I'm holding on to it, and it's very isolating, and really it's that deep isolation that we feel from God
Hmm.
that is, and that we cling to our anger and our righteousness and our belief that it's the problem is in someone else, and that the inability I mean, we're not unable, but it feels at times like we're unable to let it go, and part of us wants to let it go, but the kind of conflict that we're in at that point, I think imprisonment is a very apt description of it. And but we're not slaves to that thought system, and that's what we're learning, is that we have a power. And Ken always used to talk about the Platonic idea of being in that that cave. Is that in the Symposium? I'm trying to remember my classical works, but anyway, it's that idea
The
of
allegory of the cave is, yeah.
Allegory of the Cave. Thank
Uh-huh,
you.
yeah.
And so where people are, the symbolism is that there's these that there's this cave, and the people believe that they're imprisoned in this cave, and one of the prisoners, finally like walks out into the light and comes back to tell them that they're free. And of course, they are furious with him. I mean, they don't want to turn around and go and look toward the light. They're watching their own shadows of hell on the wall, right? And in the darkness. So there's a part of us that really doesn't want to come out of the darkness and is terrified of the light. But there's another part of us that really, that every mind has that light within it, and every mind has the power to choose that light when the suffering becomes unbearable, really. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really when when we're called to make that choice.
It's sort of like, can I have the peace of God and plenty of drama too?
Right. Well,
And
that's
because our minds are so powerful, we can appear to make that for us, but it's obviously not satisfying.
right.
And we keep wondering, well,
Well,
what?
and my special hate and my
Yeah,
special love
right,
too, right?
right.
And so, yeah, so I think, so this is a wonderful, we probably should get started on, we
Yes,
can talk
yes.
like for hours just about
Yeah,
what's happening,
yeah, it's
um,
late.
but the course is asking us to be very specific about how does this spin out of my life? How is this presenting? Pay attention to this.
Hmm.
Pay attention to where I'm attributing the problem, and why I can't be happy, and why a million times a day I go up and down. And the course talks about that too. The roller coaster of our emotions, and the how we can just constantly fluctuate. And if someone someone looks at us wrong. We can, or we get an email, you know, it's so easy with such an unstable, you know, peace. If there is no peace in this world, but unstable sort of, you know, a levelness that we have. It's really, it can be shattered by anything. And we're not aware that we want to shatter it, you know, that we reach as soon as there's something that seems to be a problem, we just pounce on it, you know, and we're like, yeah, I can't be happy. There it is again. I can never catch a break, you know.
And that, and like you're pointing out earlier, that's because of our identification with bodies and thinking that we're at the mercy of, you know, these self-inflicted identifications. Even though we that seems like a stretch most of the time. But I'm reminded of a Woody Allen joke where he talked about, well, the lion will lie down with the lamb, but the lamb won't get much sleep that night, kind of thing. And that's sort of that uneasy peace, you know. But that's because we're identified with a world that can be threatened and threatening, and we've forgotten that we made it up that way. We made up that darkness.
It's amazing we sleep at all, really. Anyway, but yeah, we should. So why don't we go read through and we can comment.
Okay. Should I start on the first paragraph? Okay. What is the peace of God? This is section 20 in the Manual for Teachers. It has been said that there is a kind of peace that is not of this world. How is it recognized? How is it found? And being found, how can it be retained? Let us consider each of these questions separately, for each reflects a different step along the way. My immediate response is, what is it? How can I get some?
Right.
What is this? What is this strange thing called the peace of God?
Right. Yeah, I want peace. I want miracles, right? But you know, again, we think we want it. We want peace on earth. We want peace in our living rooms, you know, in our, well, sort of. We think we do, but we don't really, you know. So anyway.
Not when we throw mental or otherwise virtual tomatoes at the TV screen as we walk into the living room and see our favorite political bad guy or whatever.
You sit there and you, well, I've stopped watching the news. I just binge things on Hulu and Netflix is pretty much, I'm a total escape person at this point, but you know, but I certainly I have the radio on in the morning. I get enough of it on my phone and all of that. But yeah, we're very upset. And then I catch myself Googling, oh, well then stuff to support it or refute it or, you know, anyway, we know how it is.
Points of view we want to defend.
Yeah. First, how can the peace of God be recognized? See, again, we don't know. So he's speaking to us. Remember, he speaks to us as little children. You know, this is it's not even first grade. It's
pre-kindergartner.
Yeah. So first, how can the peace of God be recognized? God's peace is recognized at first by just one thing. In every way, it is totally unlike all previous experiences. So there's no reference point in human experience for this, right? And right there, that's like, what? You know, I don't know if I like that. It calls to mind nothing that went before. It brings with it no past associations. It is a new thing entirely. There is a contrast, yes, between this peace of God and all the past. But strangely, it is not a contrast of true differences. The past just slips away, and in its place is everlasting peace, quiet. Right? So you know, the past, that thought of the tiny mad idea, the guilt over believing that we separated, just disappears in that holy instant in which we align with Jesus's healed perception, right? And you know, what's waiting for us is the peace of God once we are willing to withdraw the barriers that we've placed against it, you know. But that takes saying I'm wrong, that I don't know, that you know, it takes the humility to say I don't know how to feel better here. You know, I don't know what's in my best interests, right? We don't come to that awareness easily. We fight it like hell.
Exactly, and because it's so foreign to the ego thought system that we've identified with, you know, anything that even hints at it. Because I like how the Course and particularly a lot of Ken Wapnick's teachings suggest that, we as egos, we have no clue what, forgiveness and peace and all those things are, because they're completely not even in the vocabulary, let alone the experience.
Right.
And I was thinking how, that sentence you read, God's peace is recognized first by one thing. It's unlike all previous experience. It calls for nothing. Let's see. It's not a contrast of two differences. That was the sense, I guess, that
Right.
grabbed me. It was like, well, if pure non-duality has no opposite, then that's really what we're at the threshold of in our mind when we are really practicing forgiveness and really letting ourselves and everyone off the hook. We get close to that, and that's when the ego is like, "Oh, I'm no man's land. This is totally threatening." And that's
Yep.
usually when it pulls out the stops and say, "Oh, I got to find something to condemn or be upset about. I got to find some drama or some special love, hate, something or other, pull it out of the grab bag that Ken talks about, grab
Right.
bag of hate and grievances, and got to find something quick, because the discomfort of a piece that basically vaporizes that ego thought system is
Right.
just, beyond red alert in the ego's
Right.
insane thought
And
system,
there's
isn't it?
no me in it.
Right,
There's no
right.
me in that place. There's no guilt. There's no one or the other. There's no ego thought system. So what is that? There's a we're really not used to that,
Mm-hmm.
and so it is terrifying.
Yeah,
It's going to take a lot of work probably
right.
to untrain ourselves to, yeah.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I was thinking, and I think that's why the course is incredibly gentle, because it doesn't force or coerce anything. It's always an at your own pace, completely voluntary, of our own free will and accord. At moment to moment, we either pick it up or we don't. We either accept it or we resist it. But it's always because we each moment are choosing consciously or actively, proactively, to accept the Holy Spirit's guidance or not. And in those moments that we do, we recognize that, oh, I do have, um, that one true freedom. Earlier you said something that reminded me of another thing I found really helpful in the course is, our one remaining freedom as prisoner of this world is the freedom to choose between one of those two teachers.
That's right. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But what that is that fulcrum, that pivot point in the mind that makes all the difference. Where we choose forgiveness, we eventually get to the threshold of pure non-duality that is where the real peace is, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And it follows from having first chosen the ego, really. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
see that, oh, I must, we're training ourselves to associate our anger and our anxiety and depression and all of the negative emotions that we have with, a choice for the ego. It's not really about what, the other person or the virus or the news or my financial situation or my body, terror about something that's going new that's developing in my body. It's really the cause is deeper than that, and it's beyond really my understanding. But I know that I have another part of my mind that doesn't agree with the cause that I'm attributing it to, that false connection I'm making, and can make me feel a peace not of this world. But I have to first choose against my conflict. And I have to let go of the idea that I know where it's coming from, and that's hard.
It
That
is.
part
It
is
is.
hard for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're very stubborn about that.
So we need
So,
all that patience that is
yeah,
offered.
right. Yes, it's very gentle. There's no hurry. There's no, Jesus is not. He'll wait for us in hell as long as we need.
And yet the admonition is, meet the leisurely, infinitely patient inner kindness teachers, uh, response with your impatience, meaning, why suffer needlessly any longer than you have to?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, is it my turn? How is this?
I think were there a couple sentences left in that second paragraph, or
Oh, okay.
the passage
Um,
just slips away? Did
There is a contrast, yes, between the thing I'll read from there
okay.
and all the past, but strangely, it is not a contrast of true differences. The past just slips away, and in its place is everlasting quiet. Only that. The contrast first perceived has merely gone. Quiet has reached to cover everything. So that's that quiet center. Again, it's just there when we take the blocks away, when we're willing to, withdraw our resistance to it and
Exactly.
admit that we're wrong, right?
Yeah. Should I go on?
Yep.
How is this quiet found? No one can fail to find it who but seeks out its conditions. God's peace can never come where anger is, for anger must deny that peace exists. Who sees anger as justified in any way or any circumstance proclaims that peace is meaningless and must believe that it cannot exist. In this condition, peace cannot be found. Therefore, forgiveness is the necessary condition for finding the peace of God. More than this, given forgiveness, there must be peace. For what except attack will lead to war? And what but peace is opposite to war? Here the initial contrast stands out clear and apparent. Yet when peace is found, the war is meaningless. And it is conflict now that is perceived as non-existent and unreal. So once again, the two thought systems being completely exclusive and mutually exclusive and opposite. The thought system of forgiveness and kindness and shared interests and trusting Holy Spirit sees that war is just a silly game that sleeping children play.
Right, right.
and the sleeping children identified with their egos, which is most of us most of the time, we have a completely upside down, inside out perspective, don't we?
Well, and so we need to practice forgiveness, he's saying.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is needed here. We're not healed. Our mind is split. And so anger is the quickest way for us to throw peace away, I mean, to believe that there's something in the world, to project that guilt outward and see it as an incoming attack. And so that's great in the sense that for our practice, because how many times a day do we get angry? I don't know about you, but it's a
Or even just kind of tugged at, and even if we just respond momentarily with a, kind
well,
of a
within. I'm talking about within. We may not express it,
right,
but
exactly,
mind,
exactly.
and the more we practice this, we see that what the course says is true, that a minor twinge of annoyance hides the thought of murder, hides the thought of absolute rage.
Mm-hmm.
And we're furious at what we think we did, and we're furious at God because we now like projected that on him, and him, and believe that that he's the problem. So we're always in argument with it's our relationship with God that we're angry about all the time, and we're projecting that on each other. We're always trying to somehow feel better about ourselves for this self-hatred that we feel.
And sometimes it's not even better. It's just, as you're sharing that, I was thinking, sometimes just the fact that we have a condemning thought is a relief to the ego. It's like, oh, whew, narrowly escaped losing that identity that I'm attached to. And it's sort of like our ego identity comes up for renewal moment to moment. And as long as we have a grievance, it's like, okay, I've extended the subscription.
Well, that's what our special relationships are all about, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
stay with special relationships for years. Many are lifelong, and that is, and we get something out of it. There's a payback all the time from that, right? It's the trading off of guilt that we're doing, that bargaining for who's the less guilty one, and we're at war over that all the time with each other. And we do it in our groups and our political affiliations and our our workplaces and our neighborhoods and all of that too. But if you can see it really, really transparently in the special relationship, I think, and that's why the course spends so much time on those relationships. Right.
Yeah, the special hate being usually the more obvious, but sometimes the special love ones
Special love too. Yes.
are a little bit, can be a little bit more insidious and cleverly veiled. But once
Right.
we peek beneath the veneer, it's like, oh, it's the same thing, just
Again,
repackaged.
the practice of forgiveness really lifts the veil on what we're doing in our special love relationships too, and really makes us see that we're not using others kindly
No.
with our neediness and our expectations, and it's painful. It becomes more and more painful, and which is a huge incentive to let it go, to finally let it go. And not to let the course isn't saying let your special relationships go, but it's saying, it is saying give them a different purpose, and let's heal our minds about this. We don't have to keep using each other this way.
As you're sharing that, I was reminded of something in one of Gary Renard's many conversations or talks that really helped me. That it's like, in any relationship, not just the primary romantic ones, but any relationship, the way you can tell if it's successful is if it's being used for forgiveness. That's a pretty good criteria.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, the course would have a different definition of the soulmate. The soulmate is our long-term, often special hate partners, who special love, special hate, right? And who really, we are learning through all of the differences that we make so real to see, to make these we have a deep investment in both in making the ego real, but we can use that to have a deep investment in really healing our mind, and they are the greatest teachers for us. So yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And that piece.
Thank God that's the definition. Thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I was just that piece does.
For miracles, because that I mean, by my definition, I'm flunking.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Big time.
We're all flunkies with the dunce caps in the corner of the room. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I was thinking that we need those special relationships in order to see that what we really want is the peace of God, and we can get to that by returning to that place in the mind where an ancient hatred has become a present love, by forgiving. Yeah.
Seeing, and we do see, the byproduct of that is that we see our sameness, we experience our sameness, even if it's momentarily. Again, we're both trying to heal our minds here, no matter what it looks like on the level of form.
And sometimes that seems to take the form of, like in this Kindness Diaries, a couple of seasons of traveling around the world and seeing that everybody has the same two thought systems and the same hopes and dreams and fears, and we're all wanting the same thing. Like as you were pointing out in the manual's two premises is trusting Holy Spirit and the shared interest, and that shared interest is really vital, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead and read?
Sure. Okay. Did we read number 3?
Yes. So
okay.
we're.
Do you want to read 4?
No, I don't think. I don't think we did read 3.
Oh, maybe we didn't. Oh, maybe we didn't 3. Okay. How is this quiet found? No one can fail to find it who but seeks out its conditions. God's peace can never come where anger is, for anger must deny that peace exists. Who sees anger as justified in any way or any circumstance proclaims that peace is meaningless and must believe that it cannot exist. In this condition, peace cannot be found. Therefore, forgiveness is the necessary condition for finding the peace of God. More than this, given forgiveness, there must be peace. For what except attack will lead to war? And what but peace is opposite to war? Here the initial contrast stands out clear and apparent. Yet when peace is found, the war is meaningless. And it is conflict now that is perceived as non-existent and unreal.
And you did read that.
And I did read that, but that's okay. As I was about to sentence into it, I realized, it bears repeating, like so much of the course.
Ground us here.
Exactly.
I'm going to go on with the next paragraph then.
Thanks.
How is the peace of God retained once it is found? Returning anger in whatever form will drop the heavy curtain once again, and the belief that peace cannot exist will certainly return. Our mind is split, right? We go back and forth. War is again accepted as the one reality. Now must you once again lay down your sword, although you do not recognize that you have picked it up again. But you will learn as you remember even faintly now what happiness was yours without it, that you must have taken it again as your defense. Stop for a moment now and think of this. Is conflict what you want, or is God's peace the better choice? Which gives you more? A tranquil mind is not a little gift. Would you not rather live than choose to die?
Tranquil mind, not a little gift. That says a
Mhm.
lot. But boy, we so undervalue that tranquil mind in this world, don't we?
Right, right.
I was also thinking about the that how did this sword get in my hand again?
Lesson 192 talks about, well, I think several other places in the course, but um, yeah, that, that we hold the sword over, we're doing this to ourselves,
Mhm.
and we keep picking it up thinking that we're slaying the dragon out there. And, the war is in our mind. It's a war, but it's a war that's all happening in the mind. Nothing's going on out there. It's an outside picture of that inward condition of war that we think we declared it on God, right?
We're
And
not
now
upset
we
for the reason we think.
right,
Yeah,
right. So very cohesive and consistent discourse, which, thank God, because nothing that we made up is.
for sure, for sure. I'll read number 5. Living
Okay.
is joy, but death can only weep. You see in death escape from what you made. But this you do not see, that you made death, and it is but illusion of an end. Death cannot be escaped because it is not life in which the problem lies. Life has no opposite, for it is of God. Life and death seem to be opposites because you have decided death ends life. Forgive the world, and you will understand that everything that God created cannot have an end, and nothing he did not create is real. Just a rephrasing of that introduction to the
Yeah,
course.
absolutely. Yeah.
Nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Yeah.
In this one sentence is our course explained. In this one sentence is our practicing given its one direction. And in this one sentence is the Holy Spirit's whole curriculum specified exactly as it is. What a perfect reiteration of
Yeah.
such a simple metaphysical truth.
And, I mean, we're choosing between life and death because death, the ego thought system, is the belief in punishment, is the belief that guilt demands punishment. And the solution for that, the ultimate solution for that, is a body that is vulnerable and eventually dies, right? We take care of our own punishment ultimately, so God doesn't have to do it.
The preemptive
Um,
strike.
right. But it's an illusion. The body doesn't live, the body doesn't die. The body's a figment of the decision-making mind's imagination. And so, that's what needs healing. But as long as we believe we're bodies, we can give the body a different purpose. And that is what's leading us back to remember that there's only life, that we awaken finally to, at the top of the ladder, to through this process of forgiveness, to the awareness of what's never changed, which is that we remain alive in God, dreaming of exile, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And when you say alive, and I was thinking of the way the Course uses the life in this particular context, where it says life has no opposite for it is of God, that would be a pure non-dual
Right. Level
statement,
one.
a
Right.
level 1 statement, yeah, above the line in Ken Wapnick's wonderful chart, metaphysical chart. And I think I'll try to remember, where, where in that chart, each part of the Course is addressing, because then it kind of makes it more obvious that the real polarization within the dream is birth and death, or the opposites. You have the birth of a dream figure and the death of a dream figure.
Right.
And then I try to remember that, if I hear the word death, I could actually substitute birth in many cases as just the flip side of that same misunderstanding of a
Right.
dualistic idea. And if I identify with that, I'm trafficking in in illusions and myths and mythology. And
Right. And that's inevitable. That's why we came here, to traffic exactly in that. But along the way, we begin very gradually to identify, to disidentify with the body and the world. And, again, really, really gradually, but by focusing on forgiveness of, asking for help to forgive what I think you did to me. I learned to forgive
I did to
myself.
you?
Yeah, and that's right. It's you, Bruce. Um, and that's what begins to heal the mind enough to feel safe enough eventually, disidentified with this story of the dream figure, um, to at the top of the ladder be so disidentified with it that we no longer we no longer need to defend it at all in any way, psychologically, physically, emotionally, and the course says at that point very very soon after we can awaken to the undifferentiated union, that has nothing to do with bodies, in which that remains intact, which we have always been. So that's the real life outside the dream. But but the
Exactly.
presence of Jesus, Holy Spirit, reflects the memory of that safety and wholeness and all loving self.
Yeah, yeah. And what you just shared reminded me of, that what we just read a little while ago. Tranquil mind is not a little gift, and how much
That's a beautiful.
we vastly, completely underestimate the peace that really is being offered.
And we undervalue it, like we don't even,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's not of this world, that's
right.
not dependent on something changing in my life in this world. What does that mean? All religions that I'm familiar with, that's not the peace they're talking about. I mean, they talk about the peace of God, but they talk about, evidence of God making it right in the world too.
Hmm, hmm.
And the Course takes a very different stance on that,
Yeah.
of God not knowing about the world. This is entirely non-dualistic.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Much more akin to Eastern mysticism in that regard, for sure.
right, right.
Yeah.
So we have one more paragraph, right? Is it my
Yep.
turn?
Yeah. Now you get to tell us what the peace of God is. Cool.
Find out. Oh boy, no small gift, and we need it, right?
Hmm.
What is the peace of God? No more than this: the simple understanding that His will is wholly without opposite. And there it is. It's only His will. We didn't make another will. There is no thought that contradicts His will, yet can be true. The contrast between His will and yours but seems to be reality. In truth, there was no conflict, for His will is yours. His will is still yours. Now is the mighty will of God Himself His gift to you. He does not seek to keep it for Himself. Why would you seek to keep your tiny, frail imaginings apart from Him? So much for our lives and world. Our tiny, frail imaginings. The will of God is one, and all there is. This is your heritage. The universe beyond the sun and stars and all the thoughts of which you can conceive belong to you. God's peace is the condition for His will. Attain His peace and you remember Him. And of course, we remember ourselves as within God, as part of God.
The capital S self that we all share
Right.
with
Right.
complete inclusion. Yeah.
Again, that undifferentiated, all loving
Hmm,
union,
hmm.
which, doesn't really mean much to us right now, but we're heading, if we can just start heading and turning in the right direction,
Right.
we can have more peace.
It doesn't mean as much as it will mean, but I think we wouldn't have been drawn to study A Course in Miracles or whatever led us to this point, and probably anyone listening to this recording wouldn't have been drawn to listen to it had there not been some inner prompting that said, there's got to be a better way. There must be a peace that transcends anything that's possible in this world.
It's
And I,
not dependent on this terribly unstable situation and this terribly unloving situation,
mm-hmm,
you know? Yeah.
yeah,
So the Course, I mean, I'm really grateful for the Course, but, because even if you do have this practice does yield those times outside the dream, when you
mm-hmm,
really do have, it's not like you're thinking, oh, I'm outside the dream, but you have that peace that's not of this world. You experience a release and relief of this burden of me and all of its drama, as you were saying, and its story and its defensiveness worry and anxiety, and and it's beautiful. I mean, everyone is really included in that moment. There's no more conflict. There's no conflict in that moment because there's no one or the other,
No
And we
swords, no heavy armor,
right,
none of that is needed. No armaments for those myths.
right, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess as always, the course's answer is keep practicing. No hurry, be gentle, keep practicing. you know, and you'll have times where it's okay. When he tells us over and over, we're going to have times where we're fighting this like crazy, and that's okay too. Part of the process. So,
And the peace is there just waiting for us patiently.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, always waiting. We cannot fail. I would love to go back in this and circle how many workbook lessons were echoed in this, but there were at least 5 that I sort of was noticing as we were reading through it. So
Yeah.
anyway.
It's all interconnected, isn't it? I mean, how could truth not connect with every other aspect of truth? Just as
Yes,
how could we not all be interconnected with every other seeming aspect of creation?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And therein lies our classroom to notice where we resist that connection, and see that there's an opportunity to look at our grievances and our issues and the stuff that gets in the way, the
right,
blocks the awareness of love presence. Yeah, yeah,
right. And to remember, really that we're never alone. We have this. We're not doing this alone. It would be impossible. And
yeah,
this. So we're very heavily supported by our
yeah,
teacher,
yeah,
and we can. It's we can forgive ourselves for not doing this anywhere near perfectly. We're in school, so yeah.
yeah.
So very comforting and good to remember all the time, really.
It is. It is. Yeah. Just a gentle, remembering, mindful practice, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can be. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but
when we allow it to be.
only allowed to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. Do you have any announcements or any other updates?
Not really.
Okay. Well, I'll just remind people to check out your excellent website, foraysandforgiveness.com. And Susan posts wonderful essays on that, as well as interviews with some past interviews with Ken Wapnick, and ongoing with Jeff Siebert and
Right.
Rosemary Lasasso, and a lot of other wonderful content there, conversations with C.A. Brooks, and a lot of great stuff. So,
Yeah. And also just always a plug for the Foundation for A Course in Miracles that
mm-hmm.
continues to offer really great content, current content with Jeff, but also lots and lots of wonderful sales on past materials of Ken's, and check it out.
All highly recommended. And,
Yeah.
and as a bookend comment, I'll just put in a little plug for Foundation for Inner Peace. They're actually sort of on a sabbatical this month, but they'll be resuming their webinars with the staff there, and shorter, and the original publishers of the course, and in 27 languages and counting. So,
Yeah.
and lots of new things happening there too. So, and I'll post this on ACIM blog. So thanks again, Susan. Always enjoy our conversations. Really, always very helpful reminders for me, and hopefully for anyone who might be listening. And
Next time you've got to teach me how to get the backgrounds. Those I love looking at the ocean behind you.
oh yeah, that's about a mile south of where we live.
Is that just a picture that you uploaded? I like that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll do that. Do something like that maybe. I would
Sounds
love to think I was somewhere else. I'm
good.
really tired of this house. Or this office where I basically live most of the time. Anyway. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Susan.